A family is spending their vacation on a yacht in the middle of the Caribbean Sea. Julia, the mother, dives into the ocean to take a swim. While she's floating peacefully, something odd catches her attention. However, since there's nothing visible in the surrounding area, she assumes it's probably just her imagination. Moments later, that same unusual sensation returns. Once again, nothing appears in sight, yet this time panic sets in and she begins swimming back toward the yacht. All of a sudden, something grabs hold of her leg and starts dragging her down as she cries out desperately for assistance. Her daughter, Cassie, has earphones in, enjoying music, so the screams go unheard. Meanwhile, Tom, her husband, along with their son Ben, are occupied with fishing. Julia struggles to keep herself floating, but with water entering her mouth, calling for help becomes increasingly difficult. Shortly after, Tom becomes aware that he hasn't spotted Julia in quite some time. He looks around the yacht searching for her, then catches sight of his wife facing danger. He alerts the kids, steers the yacht toward her location, and plunges into the ocean. Reaching Julia swiftly, he grabs her and begins swimming back to the vessel. The kids manage to haul both of them aboard. The family attends to Julia's needs. However, Julia reassures herself that perhaps the waves were responsible for what occurred. That evening, the whole family gathers to celebrate Ben's birthday. Cassie receives a phone call from her boyfriend and steps outside carrying her laptop. During their video conversation, he reveals that massive, dark storm clouds are hovering above the city. The connection starts glitching before it completely freezes. Cassie returns to inform the family about what she witnessed. Tom suggests that being so far away from shore is likely causing weak signals. Right then, a noise captures everyone's attention. They head outside and observe a pod of whales swimming past them. Tom clarifies that whales typically navigate by following the planet's magnetic field. However, during storms, they lose their sense of direction. Without warning, the yacht rocks violently, causing Ben to lose his balance and tumble. Tom grows concerned about potential damage to the yacht, prompting him to dive underwater for an inspection. Some minutes pass before he resurfaces. A significant gash can be seen on his shoulder. Julia wastes no time stitching up his injury. Tom describes how he sensed the presence of an enormous creature trailing him beneath the surface, but as he turned to look, the propeller blade caught him. He emphasizes that whatever was down there had tremendous size. Tom discovers substantial damage to the yacht's structure. This means they need to radio for emergency help. Julia makes repeated attempts on the radio device. Cassie tries finding signal on her mobile phone, yet nothing seems functional. At that instant, Cassie spots what appears to be an unusual creature and lets out a scream. It turns out to be Ben playing a prank with a mask on his face. Later on, the yacht loses all power and becomes stranded in the open ocean. Julia picks up a faint voice coming through the radio. The quality is so terrible that comprehension proves impossible. Tom informs the family that their remaining food and water supplies will last merely 4 days, and their only option now is hoping a fishing vessel passes by. All at once, the radar detects something approaching and an eerie sound fills the air. Racing outside, everyone witnesses in astonishment as numerous meteorites plummet toward Earth. Massive explosions erupt wherever these meteorites make impact. One crashes into the water close to their position, causing Tom to frantically attempt starting the yacht's engine. The motor barely kicks to life when another meteorite strikes the vicinity. Terrified, the family clings tightly to one another. It suddenly dawns on Tom that these burning objects falling from above aren't meteorites at all. They're satellites. And that's when Ben observes smoke billowing from the yacht. Tom investigates and verifies the engine has failed completely. As wind speeds increase dramatically, the family takes shelter inside the yacht. They fail to notice the compass needle spinning wildly out of control. The yacht begins rocking with extreme force. Ben loses his footing once more, sustaining an injury this time. Powerful waves continuously slam against the yacht's hull. Fighting against the conditions, Tom ventures outside to retrieve life vests for everyone. The electrical system suddenly cuts out. Tom rushes to hit the emergency power switch, restoring the lights. Then Ben spots blood trickling from Julia's nose. Julia experiences waves of dizziness, while Cassie rushes to the sink and gets sick. Tom persists with radio contact attempts, but receives no response. A piercing, high-frequency noise erupts abruptly, and the winds intensify further. Julia attempts securing the doors when a hatch bursts open, allowing the fierce winds to shatter windows. Tom ignites a signal flare, and moments later, complete darkness engulfs them. Come morning, the family awakens startled to discover they've survived the violent storm. The yacht, however, lies half destroyed. Stepping outside reveals an impossible sight. The ocean waters have vanished entirely, leaving the yacht grounded on dry seabed. The shocking discovery leaves everyone speechless. Cassie attempts to get network coverage, but all systems remain offline. Ben amuses himself by poking at two deceased crabs. Tom examines the compass, finding it pointing in the opposite direction. Such a phenomenon last occurred roughly 700,000 years in the past. Cassie fears her boyfriend has perished and emotionally breaks down. Julia approaches to console her, but Cassie rejects the comfort and withdraws to be alone. Julia and Tom assess what provisions they have left. Ben secures his birthday present. Balloons to a stone, hoping any other survivors might notice the marker. Tom makes another radio attempt and successfully establishes contact with someone. The person identifies himself as New, captain of a submarine. His vessel is also beached on land. He verifies that Earth's magnetic poles have flipped, causing the ocean to recede while submerging continents. He mentions seeing no other survivors so far, and all communication networks have collapsed. Additionally, he predicts the poles will flip back again, possibly bringing the ocean rushing back within 7 days. He urgently advises the family to seek the highest elevation possible, warning that the returning waters will be catastrophically violent. He reveals his co-pilot didn't survive the crash, leaving capacity for only 3 passengers aboard the submarine. Julia and Tom plead with him to rescue their children. He provides them with his exact coordinates. Tom works out the calculations. Reaching the submarine will require 2 or 3 days of travel. He instructs the family to get proper rest tonight, as they'll depart at first light. By next morning, the family has their belongings packed and ready. Tom notices movement in the near distance. A man appears, walking with a limp, gripping a harpoon, accompanied by a barking dog. Tom walks over and offers him a bottle of water. The stranger responds in an unfamiliar language that Tom cannot interpret. After consuming the water, the stranger abruptly strikes Tom's head with the bottle and delivers a brutal kick to his face. Julia attempts fleeing in terror, but it's already too late. The attacker has driven the harpoon deep into Tom's abdomen. Tom writhes in agony briefly before the man slashes his throat. The assailant then pursues Julia, hurling the harpoon which pierces her shoulder. Despite the pain, Julia races into the yacht's interior, urgently telling the children to conceal themselves. She secures the door behind her. Cassie and Ben squeeze into a hiding spot within the sofa. Julia passes them the flare gun while arming herself with a knife, taking refuge in the bathroom. The attacker pounds against the entrance with great force until breaking through. Initially, he grabs some provisions before beginning to search the yacht thoroughly. His path leads toward the bathroom. Julia, thinking quickly, escapes through a narrow opening. The man assumes Julia has fled the yacht. However, as she cautiously emerges from hiding, his dog spots her and begins barking aggressively. When the dog lunges toward her, Julia defends herself by stabbing it fatally. Upon hearing his animal's cries, the man storms out and becomes enraged, discovering his dog's corpse. During this, Julia attempts accessing the yacht from an alternate entry point. She scales upward, trying to squeeze through a damaged window. The man intercepts her first. He seizes her violently and delivers a powerful blow, sending her crashing down. Julia attempts grabbing onto furniture pieces to protect herself. The man responds by kicking her aside forcefully. He then pins her wrist beneath his boot, forcing her to release the knife, before grabbing her by the hair and smashing her face against the floor, subsequently throwing her onto the sofa where he begins strangling her. The children witness everything unfolding. Cassie emerges from hiding and discharges the flare gun, striking the attacker directly. He becomes engulfed in flames as fire spreads throughout the yacht. The children flee immediately. Julia returns briefly, delivering a kick that knocks him down. She snatches up the map and their bag before escaping. Ben and Cassie rush to their father's side, weeping uncontrollably. Julia joins them, and together the 3 bid Tom a tearful final farewell. Just then, the dangerous man emerges from the burning yacht once more, forcing the family to run again. Within seconds, a tremendous explosion obliterates the yacht completely. After covering some ground, they pause near a small spring to catch their breath. Cassie suspects the deranged man tracked them by spotting the balloons. This realization makes Ben feel responsible. Julia assures him the situation wasn't his fault, urging everyone to keep moving since their pursuer remains a threat. Along their route, beside a shallow pool, Ben stands amazed upon discovering a dead hammerhead shark. Julia then realizes the man has nearly caught up to them again. Everyone breaks into a run, tumbling down a sand embankment where they encounter hazardous waste materials. The family navigates through carefully, seemingly having evaded their pursuer. As they continue walking, large deceased marine creatures and accumulated ocean plastic become visible everywhere. Ben's pace slows considerably, alerting Julia to his approaching dehydration. She calls for everyone to halt. Checking their water supply delivers a shocking revelation. The container is nearly depleted. Cassie realizes she likely failed to seal the cap correctly. Julia erupts angrily, blaming her daughter's negligence for losing their water. Cassie fires back, questioning what difference it makes when their survival seems impossible anyway. A heated exchange follows between them. Nevertheless, the family presses onward. Eventually, they come across a downed aircraft. Movement detected inside startles everyone. Relief comes when they realize it's merely some birds. The family determines this plane will serve as their shelter for the night. They divide their remaining snacks, and Julia discovers a family photograph tucked inside Tom's jacket, which devastates her emotionally. Cassie inquires about how her parents fell in love. Julia smiles softly while recounting the story. Tom had been her patient at the hospital. One day, he confessed his feelings by presenting flowers along with a beautiful poem. During the night, Cassie exits the plane. The threatening man attempts grabbing her from behind. Julia suddenly launches an attack on him, repeatedly plunging the knife until he stops moving. Cassie embraces her mother, helping her calm down. Morning arrives to reveal insects feasting on the man's remains. The family observes multiple bite wounds covering his body, indicating a dangerous predator inhabits this region. As they depart, crabs emerge crawling from his mouth. Hours pass as Julia and Cassie study the map. Ben wanders ahead independently. Julia shouts for him to halt. Ignoring this, Ben kneels beside a pond and begins drinking. Julia instantly pulls him away, explaining that consuming unknown water sources could cause serious illness. The sun's intensity becomes overwhelming, prompting the family to drape fabric over their heads. Ben starts experiencing dizziness. They stumble upon some abandoned chairs, which Julia and Cassie repurpose into a makeshift shelter. Julia administers an injection to Ben, deciding to remain there overnight. Morning brings Julia consciousness after hearing peculiar sounds. Investigating outside, she discovers a massive swarm of crabs advancing toward their location. She immediately rouses the children and all three sprint away. Mid-flight, they spot a large cargo vessel. 3 crew members have survived. One woman expresses willingness to assist them. The other 2 men refuse permission and secure the container, abandoning the family outside. The crabs draw dangerously close. Julia helps the children scale the container's exterior. As she begins climbing herself, crabs clamp onto her leg viciously. The children haul her upward, preventing a fatal fall. Crabs infiltrate the container through a breached section. The crew opens fire on the creatures. The crabs overwhelm them, killing both men. The final survivor reaches toward the ceiling opening. Crabs drag him down as well, ending his life. Julia wraps her injury before losing consciousness. Upon awakening, she finds herself isolated amid a raging sandstorm. Panicked, she searches frantically for the children. She recovers a weapon from a deceased woman and calls out loudly. Cassie hears and returns, explaining she and Ben sought help unsuccessfully. They reunite with Ben, who's located an unsealed container offering protection until the storm passes. Julia retrieves Tom's lighter, cauterizing her wound shut despite excruciating pain. Once the storm subsides, another container is discovered containing abundant bottled water. Examining bodies yield a radio device and firearm. Julia establishes contact with the submarine, mentioning their map was lost. New explains they encountered arthropods, marine creatures driven insane by oxygen exposure. He emphasizes urgency, as his instruments calculate the ocean's return will occur sooner than anticipated, leaving only hours remaining. He launches a flare skyward, and the family heads in that direction. Following an extended trek, the family finds a demolished restroom, where Ben relieves himself. Finally, the submarine becomes visible in the near distance. However, reaching it requires traversing a steep, rocky passage. As they navigate through, the walls destabilize and rocks begin cascading down, triggering a devastating rockslide. Julia swiftly shoves her children aside while retreating herself to avoid being crushed. A stone barrier now separates them. Julia instructs the children to proceed without her. Cassie protests, insisting her mother must attempt climbing over. After intense arguing and shouting, Julia gives her word that she'll reunite with them afterward. Reluctantly, Cassie drags her brother forward. The children ascend the treacherous path, racing toward the submarine. Upon arrival, they discover New sprawled outside, drenched in blood. He conveys that his situation is hopeless, offering the submarine to the children. Believing one extra seat exists, Cassie rushes back, seeking her mother. Julia spots the approaching crabs and opens fire. Several crabs fall, but the swarm's size makes fighting them all impossible. Cassie appears atop the wall, extending her arm downward, and Julia begins scaling rapidly, despite her damaged leg. With Cassie's assistance, she reaches the opposite side, both racing together toward the submarine. Ben stands positioned above, firing rounds to distract the crabs while the family ascends. The crabs reach New's body and immediately begin devouring him. Julia grabs the firearm, maintaining suppressive fire until the children enter safely. Once they're secure, Julia realizes ammunition is exhausted, so she hurls the weapon at the crabs before joining her children inside. The family seals the hatch securely, watching through the viewport as crabs surround the submarine completely. The ocean suddenly comes roaring back, prompting all three to quickly buckle into their seats while grasping each other's hands. Violent currents toss the submarine chaotically in all directions, causing Julia to experience flashbacks of their entire ordeal, while Cassie becomes nauseous. Shortly, that high-pitched frequency returns, rendering the family unconscious. Eventually, Julia and the children regain awareness, relieved to find themselves alive. They unlock the hatch and emerge outside, discovering the currents have deposited the submarine within a devastated city. This means hope exists for survival and beginning life anew, and here the film concludes. Remember to subscribe to the channel and activate the notification bell to receive more entertaining content.